All gas, no brake.
And now we have liftoff. Welcome into the Now We Have Liftoff New York Jets podcast, and we are recording this live Monday evening, 7:08 p.m. I'm your host, John June, and of course, got my guy, my good friend, Frank Piccolo. Frank, what's shaking, baby?
No, baby, what's going on? The season came to a close yesterday. A little disappointing, but what are you gonna do? It's been
First
fun
off,
though.
Frank, you can't return my baby with another baby because that just insinuates things that have no bearing on this show. So,
well, we can't have babies.
That's not nice. Anyways, so we got to talk about these New York Jets, man. The Buffalo Bills game obviously was a game different than what we've seen from these New York Jets, this year, at least within the division, right? I mean, they played a competitive game against Miami the second time around. They were able to have a 13-10 game here against Buffalo into the third quarter, actually into the fourth quarter. Buffalo then, blows the doors off of it with a 14-0 lead. But before we break down the game, gotta share some sad news in the football community, especially the Jets football community, as legend, staple on the 1968 championship team, Super Bowl III, Hall of Famer, one-time All-Pro, four-time Pro Bowler. Like I said, Super Bowl III champion, all-time receiving yards leader at the time of his retirement, and remains the all-time Jets leader in receiving yards and touchdowns. I'm talking about the great late Don Maynard, who passed away today at 86 years old. Frank, any words on the passing of Don Maynard?
Just the thoughts and prayers with his family. Like when you talk about the best Jet football players, I think you have to consider Don Maynard as, if not the best, top two, top three. Doesn't go down that line. When you talk about all his accolades and everything that he did, he might be top 15 receiver all time. When you talk about what he did when he did it, compared to the receivers of today and even of yesteryear, like Don Maynard was the man.
No, absolutely. I put up a tweet, with some stats about Don Maynard because, I am not the historian that you are when it comes to the Jets and Jets football. But one thing I do understand, and I do, really have a thing for when it comes to football is the numbers and, statistics and records and just different things. And one of the things that really stuck out to me about Don Maynard was back in the 1960s, right? Like DBs were allowed to basically beat up wide receivers, throughout the route. It wasn't until like the Mel Blount rule in like the 70s that you weren't allowed to basically mug receivers throughout the route before the 5-yard, that 5-yard cushion. And Don Maynard in those 60s, a time again when passing offenses, they weren't what they are today, nowhere near what they are today. And at that time, Maynard, from his career in 1960 all the way through to 1973. In 1973, he played, 2 games with the St. Louis Cardinals. But he was in 1958, he was, with the Giants, very briefly, like 5 games. And then in 59, he went to Canada. So 60 was when he really got his shot with the Jets. And so from 60 to 73, he averaged 18.7 yards per reception. Like, that would be a really good number today to average for that span, but that was a really good, like a very, very good number at that time. And, that includes his age 32 and age 33 season, right? And, this was in 67 and 68, the 68 year being the year where the Jets would go on to win Super Bowl III. He had 1,434 receiving yards in 67. He had 1,297 receiving yards in 68. That was at 20.2 yards a clip for 67, 22.8 yards a clip for 60. Like, the two was averaging 23 yards a catch on almost 1,300 receiving yards. And by the way, scoring 10 touchdowns a season, right? Like, not an average. Like, he had 10 touchdowns each of those seasons, and these are in like 14 games and less, right? So, like, the 68 season, he played, I think, 13 games that year. So this dude was just an absolute, like, he was so different, for his era of football. And, it's crazy just to think that it took until 2015. Like, this guy played, he had that wonderful record-breaking season in 67, the 1,494 yards in 14 games. It took until 2015 for Brandon Marshall to break that record for the New York Jets, right? Like, just, again, this guy was awesome. Like, I just remember seeing highlights of Super Bowl III, just highlights of Don Maynard throughout his time, right? Like, one of the things that really stuck out to me was just him, and like, he was just a wide receiver flanked out wide in a 3-point stance. Like, I never saw something like that. But Don Maynard, I was like, how can you be in a 3-point stance, playing wide receiver? But this guy was just flying down the field, just, catching bombs. And so I know that's a long, thing there, but just RIP to a legend and a Jets great, and somebody who's I never watched play, but whose game I really, really appreciate. Coming from obviously the world of doing stats and fantasy football and things like that.
Yeah, I echo those sentiments, John.
Yeah, so let's talk about the present day New York Jets. They were. Oh man, that's my guy, Jean-Luc. Yeah, it's not what it seems, bro. I promise you, man. It's not what it seems. It's not what it seems. But anyway, it made me lose my train of thought there. The Buffalo Bills, again, 27, 210 was the final score there for the New York Jets, and it was a spirited effort. It was a spirited battle for 3 quarters. I mean, you really, there was a time there where you really felt like the Jets were going to pull this one out. The Jets would get a win here against a divisional opponent, and it would have made it that much sweeter because New England was losing, so you could have got the win and not help New England at the same time. And so, gotta love, the battle that these guys put forth here, especially, the defense, man. They were undermanned, basically the underdogs coming into this game, 16.5-point dogs to a Buffalo Bills team that is expected to go deep into the AFC playoffs. And for whatever reason, Jeff Ulbrich had this defense ready to play. I mean, they put all this talk about Buffalo the last time. How come we don't put Brycehall on Stephon Diggs? Well, they seems like this time they were content with putting Brandon Echols on Stephon Diggs and letting Bryce Hall go with Gabe Davis. They seem to play much, more matchup. They're not entirely playing zone or man coverage, but they're playing more matchup type coverage with their defensive backs. I mean, what are your thoughts on the performance by the defense, and what were your thoughts on the utilization of the cornerbacks?
I think Ulbrich has done a pretty solid job the last couple weeks. You could see him mix matching certain guys in. I think moving Pinnock from cornerback to safety really has helped. Like Pinnock had a really solid game, and Echols, you could see the progression week in and week out, especially since he come back from that little injury that he had. Like he's going to be a really solid cornerback, and I don't like it's a little premature, but I don't think the Jets should target a cornerback in the first 2 rounds with how these guys have progressed. Like obviously if they can make a run at JC Jackson, but I think cornerback is going to be okay, especially if we fix this D line and the atrocious linebacker play that we've seen this season.
Yeah, I think we've seen enough from these guys. And again, cornerback is a tricky position because it is a very volatile position where guys can come in and they can play really well for a season, and then next year they don't have as good of a year. Maybe they don't get their hands on as many balls, or they're not able to snag as many interceptions or things like that, right? So there's a lot of things that go into it, but just imagine how good these cornerbacks and this coverage could be when you get a pass rush here, right? Like the pass rush was inconsistent at times, but I think that adding an elite pass rusher and getting talented depth either through the draft or some free agents, like adding some competition to the cornerback room is better than the vice versa, right? Like I would rather get an elite pass rusher and get a cornerback competition as opposed to get an elite corner and try to get pass rush competition, because it's going to be very hard to find a pass rusher, whether it's a middling free agent or a middle to late round draft pick to get to come in here and compete, for double digit sack production. But you could get an athlete, because really that's what the Jets are kind of missing out in the secondary, is outside of having Hall and having Echols, they don't really have guys that you feel comfortable with running with guys consistently out on the outside, right? Like if Echols or Hall goes down, like who do you feel comfortable throwing out there?
My fix to that. We talked about it the other day, who I'm really high on coming out of this draft.
Oh, you mean Kyle Hamilton?
Yeah, it's all the chips in the middle of the table for Kyle Hamilton for me. And and as we get closer, we'll delve into why I feel that way. But just keep an eye on Kyle Hamilton. I know a lot of Jet fans are a little hesitant because of Jamal Adams, but this kid isn't Jamal Adams.
That like bringing up Jamal Adams like has no bearing to me about whether the Jets will draft a player at another position like that, right? Like Joe Douglas didn't draft Jamal Adams, right? Like he obviously they didn't value Jamal Adams for what he was asking for, but there's a reason for that. And Kyle Hamilton, like you said, I know we'll obviously talk about draft prospects and things like that, but I don't compare Kyle Hamilton to Jamal Adams. I know you've been very adamant about it. I kind of have a process where I don't really try to look at these college guys until I know that they're pretty much going to declare. Outside of that, like I don't try to delve into these prospects, but I did look at Kyle Hamilton. I did do some did watch a little bit of him, and he fits what this defense kind of needs, which is like an athlete back there that can make plays and run across the field and make tackle sideline to sideline and just wreak havoc for a defense, right? Because when you look at this Jets defense, like who wreaks havoc on it?
I don't think anybody. No one. C.J. Mosley at times.
At times.
At times.
Right? But again, we talked about this the other day. We were texting it back and forth. C.J. Mosley is, he's like this every game or like every other game where it's like one game he's playing like a maniac. He's got 18 tackles. He's got like, 2 tackles for loss. Like he's making stops, right? Like, and you're like, wow, C.J. Mosley's like he's a man possessed right now. But then there's other times like, the Buffalo game on Sunday where you're watching him and you're like, he didn't move his feet. There are several times I'm watching him, he like doesn't move his feet and just lets the lineman get to the second level and just take him out of the play.
Like that first touchdown run where it was like his feet were in cement and he let the lineman get inside leverage on him. And once the offensive lineman get inside leverage, you're done. Like, I don't care how big and strong you are.
Yeah, right? Like, especially if you're not moving.
Yeah. and you said game to game, C.J. Mosley will go like quarter to quarter or drive for drive. Like, there'll be a stretch where he'll have 3 good drives and then he'll have a terrible drive and the opposing team will score.
Yeah, it's definitely inconsistent. I mean, it seems by all accounts that the Jets want him back there, and it seems like he's speaking like a man who expects to be back, talking about recruiting and telling people that, hey, if you think you're going to come here and lose, then don't come. I love that stuff. Definitely love that. But at the end of the day, I think that they definitely need some linebacker help. I don't think that that's a possibly thing. I think that it would be, maybe it seems like a luxury almost, but like if they could find a way to creatively, turn one of these picks in the top 40 into an extra pick in the second round that you could use on a playmaker on the defensive side of the ball, I think that they could very much use that right now.
Absolutely. Even if we find like a true Mike backer where you could like we talked in the offseason, moving him into that where we played Hamza and, because that's what we're really missing is that will linebacker spot. Like
who do you put, like when you get ready to play the Jets defense, who do you put the penny on? Right? Like the penny to distinguish, like this is the player that we're looking for, right?
Quinnen. That's
Quinnen,
it.
right? It's got to be Quinnen, and that's it.
JFM at times, JFM, he was banged up all year, but JFM at times. And tell you the truth, Quincywilliams probably played a better linebacking position in the totality than C.J. Mosley this year.
Yeah, he's been getting better, right? Like you could see the progression of Quincywilliams. Like you have lower expectations for Quincywilliams, so like when he does something great and phenomenal, like it really pops off the screen. I think he could still do better in coverage, and I think he will do better in coverage because you've even seen his growth there throughout the year, right? Like where it's times where it's like, why do you have him matched up on this running back, and then he's able to make a play, and you're like, okay, like he's actually learning, he's getting better at this. So I definitely think that they can make an addition there at the linebacker spot. Quincywilliams has, again, like you said, been playing well. C.J. Mosley could play better, but don't forget like Jamie and Sherwood, Hamza Nasruddin, like these 2 guys were making a transition that is not very easy to make, right? Like we say, like it was a shock to us that they were getting, first team reps and the opportunities that they were getting as early as they did. Because it was kind of sink or swim. But at the end of the day, right, like these guys are coming into a situation where it's not just like, oh, because I was good in coverage or I played safety, like I'm going to come in and I'm going to be this, run and hit, linebacker who can make plays in space. Like you also have to know how to get off blocks. You have to know how to, you're not handling these 300 pound linemen from, 7, 8, 9 yards depth. Like now you're at like 4 or 5 yards of depth, right? And these guys are on you now. So like, how do you handle that, right? When they're coming off a double team, they're coming to you, right? Like how do you handle that, right? So there's a lot more growth and a lot more learning that needs to get done before these guys can, really make an impact. Frank, anything else you want to add on this topic?
No, I'm with you right there. The defense is probably missing that guy, but that guy probably would have been Lawson, right? Losing him probably hurt.
Yeah,
And
and
that
the thing that we talked about too, we've talked about all off season was how good Lawson was for Quinnen, right? Like, and I think that's one of the things that we lose sight of, right? Like we expected Quinnen to have a phenomenal year, and you know what? He did have a pretty good year when you look at it, when you consider per game basis and things. But that's another part of it. Like, got to get him to stay on the field, but there's this like this other ceiling that we haven't seen yet because there's JFM again, he's great, but even JFM is a guy who you have to not play out of position, but you can't use him to his fullest potential because you don't have a true edge presence, right? Like JFM's a guy you should be moving across, moving all over the defensive line, trying to get matchups with, same thing along with Quinnen, right? Where you can have this versatile defensive line and he could be that matchup piece.
Yeah, like San Fran did with Buckner
Yeah,
for all those
absolutely.
years. Like
Absolutely.
that's what you want to use those two guys at. And to make matters worse, you lose Brycehuff for the majority of the year, who was your only edge presence once Lawson went down. I think Joe D is going to have to make a real effort in bringing more edge guys into here. But that being said, it was year one of this rebuild, and what we thought was going to be a strength what wasn't really when you talk about the depth of the offensive line, and that really reared its ugly head yesterday.
Well, that's the thing about depth, right? Is that you have a lot of it until you don't, right? Because in the NFL, injuries happen, and they can almost cascade on you. And the Jets had some of the worst injury luck, if not the worst injury luck in the league. And so there's an expectation that they should regress from that. But I feel like we've been saying that about the Jets for like 2, 3, 4 years now, with the amount of injuries that they've had to key players over the recent years. But I mean, Sunday was about as bad as it gets, right? You're on your third string left tackle. I mean, I don't even know what to call that. Is that your fourth string left tackle? Because I don't know if Chuma got benched, right? Like, so you go from Becton, who gets hurt, to Fant, who gets hurt, to Chuma, who is ineffective and also gets hurt, and then now you got McDermott in here. So I think that I think that this is one of the situations here where they have to attack this, to continue to get the depth of the offensive line. And a few weeks ago, I was, hyperbolically saying that we should use another pick on offensive line because, we lack toughness, but they honestly should use a middle round pick, at least one or two mid round picks on the offensive line. If it's in the fourth or fifth round. I know they don't have. Oh, they do have a fourth round pick because the Chris Herndon trade. So if you're using some picks, even a third round pick on an offensive lineman, which they don't have a third round pick, but if you can find a way to again get creative in those middle rounds and take some more offensive linemen and kind of do what the New England Patriots do. I think the way the New England Patriots have built their offensive line is one of the smartest ways that you can build an offensive line, right? Because they're constantly just taking guys in the middle rounds, right, in the second, third, fourth round of the draft, and if they hit on those guys, they're starters, right? And then they just keep drafting more, and then those guys end up going on, to get free agent money somewhere else, right? Joe Tooney, who was the other guy? Nate Solder, some of these other guys, and then they get a compensatory pick for it, and then they use that compensatory pick to then draft more offensive linemen. Like, I think it's a genius way to kind of farm, have a running farm of offensive linemen while also staying out of cap hell. Um, Frank, your thoughts on any of this?
Yeah, I think, and I kind of forgot about him too. We still got Cam Clark.
You know what? I was gonna bring him up to you the other day. He's been somebody I've been thinking about because, again, he was just dealing with a concussion, neck injury. It was a scary situation, but it's not like there's a ligament issue or a knee or a joint or something that we're concerned about. I mean, and obviously, a concussion in the neck is very scary. I'm not trying to make light of that, but I would imagine that there's a good probability that he can make compete for a spot on this roster.
And it, especially Duvernay talked about he might not be able to play football next year because of his career, like his other career being a doctor. And if that's the case, you might be able to get away with having Cam Clark competing for that right guard spot.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And I mean, maybe you could still even work out something with Duvernay Tardif where, I mean, I guess why would you, if you're him, why would you want your rights to be held by somebody? Like, if you're not going to work. But it would be, he was such a really good addition to this offensive line that it would really suck to see him go. But like you said, I think Clark could be a nice, could make for nice competition there. And you still don't know what's going to happen with Moses. Could you convince him to come back and maybe compete at guard, right? Like,
that's the thing to do, because he just looks like a guard, and he's such a dog. Like, yeah. It was good. Like, my takeaway from yesterday, it was good to see the Jets fight a little bit. Like, they weren't gonna lay down, they weren't gonna be pushed around, and you're starting to see an identity with this team. It kind of sucks that it took this long, this late in the season, to the Jets to find the identity. They want to run the ball. They kind of want to run those gadgety plays once or twice a game, and how the defense wants to play. They want to play that zone. They want to play tough nose downhill football, which is good because we didn't have an identity with Gase. Now, you can see what Salah's trying to do. You can see what Ulbrich and LaFleur are trying to do. They're attacking. They're not going into a game. We're not going as fans into a game questioning what our team is doing because we don't understand the concepts that the coaching staff has implored for this week's game plan.
No, I think those are phenomenal points, right? Like, when you look at the situation these last few weeks from, the Miami, you can start at the Philadelphia game, really, right? Like the Philly game, the New Orleans game, the Miami game. But the Miami game is where it really started, where they've been able to now put almost games together, right? Like, it started where the Philly game and the Philly game, they were able to put a half together, which you're like, okay, wow, that's really good. And then the New Orleans game, again, offensively it was rough, but for the most part, they were able to put 3/4 of competitive football together. And then the Miami game, they held a lead for most of it, right? Up until, the second half where, they relinquished it. And then the Jacksonville game, they end up winning that, of course, a game that they're supposed to win. The Tampa Bay game, they basically were winning that game for 58 minutes. So, yeah, I know. And then the Buffalo game, again, they gave a fight to a divisional opponent who had something to play for in week 18. Like if Buffalo doesn't win that game, they had a, obviously New England ended up being a moot point, but they could have not won that division. And so, I think you said this. I think it might have been you that said this a few weeks ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you wanted to see something similar to what Miami did a few years ago with Flores, and obviously Flores getting fired today. No, hopefully
so dumb, dumb.
Don't know the exact reasons. Maybe it seemed like there was some kind of power struggle there, but they remind me of Miami from a few years ago. I mean, maybe not the quality of wins, because that Miami team, they were able to beat New England in week 17 when New England was actually playing for the number one seed, and this was like the Tom Brady New England Patriots, right? So like there was that, but I think that the football that they've been able to play in recent weeks is kind of reminiscent of that Miami team and how competitive they've been. And when you consider that Miami team, right, like they went on to draft a rookie quarterback into, like, the Jets already have their rookie quarterback in place. So they can go on with the idea of, hey, we're building around Zach Wilson. Like these 4 picks that we have, which Miami, again, was in a similar situation with all the draft capital that they had. But it was like these 4 picks that we have in the top 40 aren't to help us. None of them is a quarterback. Like these are all to help build up our roster. And if LaFleur, if he can continue to take the steps that he took today, or not today, but this year, and especially during the back half of the year, and he's able to continue to make those improvements in game planning, especially the second half, I think he's been doing a lot better at that, right? Where, at first it was like they couldn't score in the first quarter. Then it seemed like the first 15 was like really good. And then they were able to string together like full, a whole first half. And now it seems that, LaFleur has just gotten to the point where he's like, no, I can call the whole game now. Like I can punch and I can counter punch. And I think that that's very important for the Jets, because they haven't had an offensive coordinator here in a while who could counter punch, right? Like I think, we saw it out of Chan Gailey in the 2015 year. But before that, even Schottenheimer had his limitations, right? Like LaFleur is the first OC that I've seen that could consistently punch and throw a counter punch here. And I think as he grows and Zach Wilson grows in this offense, and obviously yesterday they were playing undermanned. Like, think about this real quick. The Jets were playing in a game yesterday where at one point they didn't have their top 5 receivers. Their top 5, right? No Correydavis, no Elijahmoore, no Braxton Berrios. You lose Jamisoncrowder and keelancole both during the game. That's your top 5 receivers. Like, absolutely absurd what they had to go through yesterday. And I think that Joe Douglas and this coaching staff, they know that. They know that they need to add more receiver depth. I would imagine at least like 3 receivers getting added to this room. That's it.
Yeah, probably more. You might be looking at more because you're probably losing Crowder. You're either losing Crowder or Berrios. One of the 2 guys are not coming back. I don't think you could afford to lose both of them. Cole's probably gone. I'd let Smith go. He does nothing for me. And then you got the question mark with Mims.
Yeah, I think Mims gets a training camp to try to prove himself and get an opportunity. But
He better go see go to Michael Irving's camp that Michael Irving has with some of the players, or
I'd love to see him work out with
talk,
Brandon Marshall or you know
or
Ocho
maybe
Cinco or something, man. Like those guys. Like remember Robbie Anderson worked out with Ocho and came back and had like 900 yards. Like, come on, man.
that, or talk to Debo Samuel, find out what Debo does, so he
Oh,
can learn that playbook.
Denzelmims can't do what Devo does. That's
No,
the
I know, but
problem.
yeah, we know that. But just that playbook, so he could understand that playbook. Because I think that's what Denzel Mims' problem is. He's thinking too much. Like
Yeah,
in
another
that
Emmy
like in
yesterday
that
that caused
gaze
a
off
penalty.
in that gaze offense, he was like the only receiver. He was running in the middle of the field, and he was able to do what he did.
They're
You
like
don't.
run vertical.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't do that in this offense. Like Salah talked about it today, how this offense isn't like most offenses, is that this offense will do things post snap to get a certain player the football. And if you're not, and you saw it multiple times this year, if you're not the primary objective on that play as a receiver, you can't dog it. And Mims dogs it a lot.
Yeah, he's there's been some laziness from him, which you don't want to see from a guy that is fighting for opportunities, right? Like when you get an opportunity, like you should be going. If you're gonna make you're gonna make a mistake, and I'm sure you've heard this a ton, Frank, and for your playing days, and anybody who's listening that's ever played football, but like you've always been told, if you make a mistake, you make it at 100% full speed. Like nobody was gonna get mad if you especially if it works like offensive lineman, whatever, right? Like even if you block the wrong guy, right? Like what do they say? Don't like half block the wrong guy. Like if you're gonna block the wrong guy, like block the wrong guy.
Yeah, because you're gonna get yelled at regardless, right? But when the coaches put on the tape to be like, all right, he might not be the smartest person in the world, but at least he did not just loaf it. And they see that. Why do you think they love Braxton Berrios?
Well, the other problem is Braxton Berrios isn't causing you 15 and 5-yard, 10-yard penalties on pre-snap penalties.
Oh God! Yesterday too.
Yeah, no, I had another one yesterday. So, look, I'm a huge fan of the prospect that Mims was, right? Like I thought he was one of the better receivers coming out of the draft. I thought he should have been a first-round pick. I still stand by all of those things because I think the talent is still there. It would be nice if you knew that the player was putting in the effort to reach that potential. So again, don't know the whole story, don't know everything going on, but I just hope that he makes the most of this opportunity. Um, let's talk about Michael Carter. I mean, he kind of disappeared a little bit yesterday. I mean, it was tough sledding for the entire offense. Um, but I've been impressed with obviously his season, the year that he kind of put together. 500, so just over 500 yards rushing. I think he had about like 200 yards receiving or something like that. Up exactly. 639 yards rushing and 325 yards receiving. So, don't want to obviously talk about the entire roster and break everything down, the year review and stuff, because we're obviously going to do that all next week and obviously the coming days. But Michael Carter, I think that you're probably going to see, some additions to this backfield. Maybe get somebody with a different body type in here than what we currently have. But what was your thought on the performance yesterday of the running backs?
Non-existent. Like, just that the offensive line was so bad yesterday, and it really wasn't the offensive line in general. It was really Connor McDermott, and he's so bad. Like, I every time he did a bad play, I would text you. Like, he made like his kick step. Like, I can't imagine an NFL player with a worse kick step. I texted you. I was like, my 90-year-old grandma has a better kick step than Connor McDermott. Like, by the time he gets there, he kicks out. You got the D end by him, and I get it. Buffalo's defense is great, but dude, come on, do something, and then I can't anymore talk about the Jets' offensive line.
Well, we will have plenty of time to talk about the Jets' offensive line next week. So, Frank, I mean, the Jets for didn't yesterday's game give you some like felt like week 15, not week 15, 2015, like 17, 2015. The Jets played in Buffalo. Except that time, the game meant a whole lot. Except this was the most excited I had felt watching the Jets play Buffalo since like maybe week one of like the Adam Gase year.
Yeah, like that. This team is going to be a good team. Like, and I know certain fans of the Jets are off on Zachwilson. They're off on Salah because they want that immediate satisfaction with this team. But stay with it because this is going to be a good team. They're building this the right way, and you can see it.
Yeah, I think the outside perspective of the Jets is obviously always going to be worse than what it actually is. I mean, some of my friends, that are Patriots fans, were texting me and asking me like, "Hey, would you guys swap like Flores for Salah?" And I was like no, like why would we? Like why would we do that? I mean, because if you look again at the way the Jets have finished the year, they've been competitive. They've been playing competitive football, and they basically, with the way this roster is constructed, they're playing with both hands tied behind their back.
Yeah, you're playing with a college team right now.
Like
between, like you're looking at like a preseason football team. Besides Mosley and like Michael Carter a little bit, but he's been banged up in and out. Like, no one on this defense. You had that receiver that made that great sideline catch. I've never even heard of him before.
Tariq Black, yeah.
Yes, like where did he come from? I think they just signed him.
University of Texas, apparently.
Yeah. So like that, like I try to have perspective when I'm looking at these games, right? Like the Jets went toe-to-toe with Tampa Bay with nobody. They went toe-to-toe with Tampa Bay with Braxton Berrios and Zach Wilson. Yesterday, they were down one score in the fourth quarter to a team that was fighting to win a division title. I get it. The Jets are helped out by Buffalo's special teams.
But it's part of the game, right?
Like exact. How many field goals and extra points did the Jets miss in the beginning of the year? Like, you see the fight, and that's what's good about this team. Like, there's no quit in this team. You see the fire from Salah, especially on that. I don't know what happened on that play where Josh Allen went out of bounds and he got hit a little late, and then he cried for a penalty, and then we had a 10 minutes later, it felt like the flag came out. Like, I thought that was a little bush league, especially from Josh Allen.
The hit was.
Oh no! It was late. But don't throw the flag because Josh Allen's crying about it. It's either a foul or it's not.
I guess they feel like he's Tom Brady now, right? Like, you could ask for a flag. But all those things that you just said about Salah and the fire and the competitiveness of the team, you couldn't say those things in the first few weeks of the season. Like, you could not say that they were competitive. Like, outside of like the Tennessee game and the Atlanta game and the Buffalo game, even the Atlanta game wasn't really competitive, right? Like, like they did not play a ton of competitive football for a very long stretch, and then even Mike White comes in and they look competitive, but they got blown out by the Colts, right? Like they go out next week, they get destroyed by Buffalo. They start Joeflacco against Miami, and they look good for not some time. They look decent or whatever, but then Zach Wilson comes back and they just continue to get their faces kicked in again, right? So it's like it didn't start looking good until we got to the end of the year, and you're like, okay, well, like you're starting to actually build this team. I just would like to see. I like to see more toughness from them. I think they don't have that right now. They don't have like a swagger about them, and kind of expectedly so, right? Like, you're not expecting this team to have like a bunch of swagger, but like have some like self-respect, right? Like pick up your quarterback. Like when he gets like, there's one of the most frustrating things to watch, right? Like how many times go watch Tom Brady on Sunday, and the times that he gets sacked, like count how many times one of his offensive linemen doesn't pick him up off the floor, right? Like if you give up a sack to your quarterback, like like you should feel bad and go like pick homie up off the floor, dude. Like why is like picking himself up off the floor? Like it just drives me nuts. Like they're not defending him after late hits. Like all of it is just. I would just like to see them show some toughness.
Yeah, I hear you, bro.
All right, I think we went a little bit over today for the most part of the show, but let's talk about let's spend a little time talking about some some of these lines from the divisional games. So, Frank, what do the lovely people have to know, especially my fellow New Yorkers, this week?
John, the NFL playoffs are here, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is kicking things off with a huge offer. Counting down to Super Bowl 56, new customers can get 56 to 1 odds on any wildcard team to win their game. So if you bet just $5, you win $280 in free bets if your team is victorious. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state, you still have something to play for this wildcard weekend. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes with DraftKings daily fantasy football contest. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot of millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code TPPN and get 56 to 1 odds on any NFL team. Bet just $5 and win $280 in free bets if your team wins. That's promo code TPPN this wildcard weekend at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 years or older to enter. New Jersey, New York, Indiana, Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit, $1 wager required, one per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Yes, sir, man. We got some interesting football lined up for the Super Wild Card weekend. 6 total games, 2 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday. Even get 1 on Monday. Like this is absurd. It's like football overload. But I will take it. That's why they gave us all this Saturday football to kind of like prep the brain and get us ready for this, because this is a lot of my sense. It's like sensory overload here with all the football that we will be getting, and quality football too, right? You've got the Las Vegas Raiders traveling to Cincinnati, where that game the Bengals are 6 point favorites. You've also got the New England Patriots traveling to Buffalo, where the Buffalobills are 4 point favorites. You've also got the Eagles traveling to Tampa Bay. They're 8.5 point favorites. Again, all these lines provided to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. Again, enter that promo code TPPN, like my guy Frank said, especially my New Yorkers out there. There's a lot of bonuses out there for the New Yorkers who, again, online sports gambling just became legal in New York. So a lot of promo codes out there, a lot of offers for folks. So the other matchups, we got the San Francisco 49ers traveling to Dallas. They're 3-point underdogs against Dallas. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 12.5-point underdogs on the road in Kansas City. And then you've got the LA Rams, who are 4-point favorites at home against Frank's Arizona Cardinals. So, Frank, which matchup are you most intrigued by this week?
Pittsburgh and KC.
Why?
Big Ben.
Why?
I think he's going to have one more game in him. One more game in him. I'm not saying he's going to win, but that line ain't getting covered.
I don't know, man. The Kansas City Chiefs have somewhat owned the Pittsburgh Steelers in recent years.
I don't care about that. Don't talk to me about that.
I wouldn't really care, but when a lot of the things are still the same, right? Like the head coaches are the same.
KC hasn't looked like KC this year.
The quarterback's the same, and Ben Roethlisberger is worse. I mean, they haven't looked like KC, but their defense is playing better. Last time these teams played earlier in the year, and I believe KC got after Pittsburgh then too. It's just I can't like Big Ben's arm is not at a place right now where he could win a shootout, and you might have to win a shootout because Pittsburgh's defense isn't even playing at as high as a level as even like Denver's defense is playing. Like Denver's defense is playing better football than Pittsburgh's, and so it's going to be tough sledding for Pittsburgh. That's probably the one team I'm off of the most. The matchup I'm most intrigued by, I guess not pick like if I had to pick a game, if I had to pick a game, I think I'm picking the Bengals over the Raiders. 6 points. The Raiders coming off an emotional game. Then they have to play Saturday at 4:30. Like that's crazy to me. 6 points on the road. Cincinnati, all those weapons over there in Cincy. Yeah, I think it's going to be tough sledding there. Now that that's out of the way, games that intrigue me. I think a lot of these matchups are super intriguing, especially you've got the AFC East wild card matchup here with the two divisional opponents of the New York Jets. So basically, no matter what happens, one of our rival fan bases and organizations will feel pain, which is like that's a good thing for us, right? Like
I'm hoping it's New England.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. I'm hoping it's New England as well, right? Like, especially I got all my New England friends, and there's the stuff that's going on.
It's okay, John. They're not listening. So
all the stuff that's going on in that group chat is
I bet it's crazy.
It's crazy, ridiculous. So apparently,
what about that San Fran game? That San Fran game
is the other game I was going to talk about. That game looks absolutely it seems like it's going to be bananas. Right?
That's going to be bananas.
The Niners are 3-point dogs.
How are they 3-point dogs?
And that I don't know. They're playing on the road. 51-point total here. This game is going to be absolutely absurd.
But here's the thing. Does Jimmy Garoppolo become what Jimmy Garoppolo do we get that are we going to get during that game? Like, are we going to see Jimmy G like we saw yesterday, or are we going to get, what we normally get? But Kyle Shanahan's going to go bananas with Debo.
Jimmy Garoppolo has been having a really good year playing for the Niners. I mean, the stats don't look fantastic, right? 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, but he's been playing quarterback, at a high level in terms of just operating this offense and distributing the ball. And I think that obviously Kyle Shanahan is going to call this game the way that he wants to in terms of how he wants to attack the Niners. I don't think that, or how he wants to attack the Cowboys. I don't know if that's going to be via the pass, though. I think that you could run on the Dallas Cowboys, and they showed that even against a second and third string Philadelphia team that you could kind of get run on there. So, this is a Niners playoff. This is a Niners team that won a playoff game attempting like 6 pass attempts in the game. So, like they can do that. They always have that run game to lean on. I think that they're probably going to do that, and Jimmy G is going to make the plays that he has to distribute the ball to playmakers like Deebo Samuel, like Brandon Ayuk, like George Kittle, and so on and so forth. But I think Elijah Mitchell is going to, be, he's going to definitely have an impact in this game.
Yeah, I can't wait. My wife is going to be so mad at me.
Yeah, mine doesn't know yet. She'll find out though.
Yeah.
Babe, if you're watching, sorry. But anyway, so like these I think the other matchup that's interesting, right? Not because I think that they can win, but I think that they'll give them some trouble, is Philadelphia against Tampa Bay.
Oh, I don't think at all. I don't think that's gonna be intriguing at all.
I feel like at the 8.5 points, I think Philadelphia can make it close, right? When you look at just even how dynamic their run game can be, right? With Jalen Hurts and they're getting Miles Sanders healthy and Jordan Howard and Boston Scott. I think Devontae Smith is obviously playing some really good football right now. So I think we saw the Jets, really not put it on Tampa, but were able to score some points. And so I think that Jalen Hurts and this Philadelphia offense will probably be able to score some points and again, make it close and maybe even get like a backdoor cover type deal where, they're down, 14 or something, and they get a late cheap touchdown to pull it within 8.5. But seems like Frank wants to. Frank, you have a segment that you want to get into.
Yeah, I think we're gonna bring back. It's been a minute, probably since we did the breakdowns that we going back to our blast from the past. So, John, why don't you tell me what's your favorite Jet wild card game?
Favorite Jet wild card game? Yeah. So I'm not gonna go super. I'm not gonna go super old on us here. My divisional round games were much like I like those were more fun to me. The divisional games, like those stick out more to me. But wild card game that really sticks out, I think I'll have to go. I think I'll have to go with the Colts game in 2010? Yeah, the Colts game in 2010, in the 2010 season. So like it was probably like 2011, but it was 2010, 2011 season. The New York Jets were basically facing Peyton Manning, and this was a rematch of the AFC Championship game from the year before when the Jets were winning at halftime, but got walloped in the second half. And, there was just all this talk about how the Jets were basically going to lose that game because Peyton Manning was going to do what Peyton Manning did to them the year before. And the Jets had lost Jim Leonard, like earlier in the year. And so you're kind of thinking like, we're kind of screwed. But they go into that game and they played a ton of cover 2, and they played Eric Smith as like a dime linebacker, and they just kept forcing Peyton to run the football. Because and it's funny hearing the story because I think it was Bart Scott that had told the story, and I know Bart Scott's caused some heat, but he was a staple on those 09 and those 10 teams. But they talk about Peyton Manning basically being like a computer, where it's like he's always basically trying to get his offense into the perfect play, and how they knew that if they just kept giving Peyton Manning like some two shell looks, some favorable run looks, that he was going to take them. And that was kind of how Rex Ryan had basically concocted this game plan against Peyton Manning, which was like, hey, yeah, we're going to force you to run the ball, and we're going to try to stop you that way. And I thought it was fantastic. Obviously, there was the putting Darrelle Revis one-on-one with Reggie Wayne, who had one target and no catches for 0 yards. Like, that was awesome. But again, the Jets had to do something that they had done all year that year in 2010, which was make a comeback. And Mark Sanchez he had done previously that same year in MetLife against Houston. He had done it in Detroit. He had done it in Cleveland. All in that same year, he had to just drive the Jets down and put them in position to potentially win the game. And there was the throw to Braylon Edwards on the sideline, which was, again, reminiscent of the play earlier in the year in Houston. It's basically the same play where the defense gave Mark Sanchez and the Jets offense cover two. Braylon Hull runs like that, that fade route, and Mark Sanchez just hits him in that cover two hole shot right over the corner, right in front of the safety, and Braylon Edwards gets the ball, ends up out of bounds. The Jets are then line up, and Nick Folk, who at the time was having a rough go at it as the Jets kicker, goes in and basically puts it through. And we were on to New England, where everybody obviously knows what happened that week.
Yeah, that was a fun game to watch. It really was. But for me, I'm going to stay with the same team, but I'm going to go to the year 2003. So that'd be the 2002 season. That'd be the last time the Jets won the division. And it'll be the last time that the Jets won or hosted a playoff game. So Herman Edwards was the coach. And obviously, we had Pennington as the quarterback. And I remember going into that game thinking the Jets had no shot. And then, it had to be, I think it was the third play from scrimmage. Chad threw a little screen pass to Richie Anderson, who was the Jets fullback at the time. And he, just breaks off a 56-yard field goal, or a 56-yard touchdown, rather. And I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. What's really crazy about this game was that Curtis Martin obviously was the Jets' whole team during those years, but the Jets had a backup running back in Lamont Jordan, and he actually ran the ball 20 times for 102 yards, 2 touchdowns, had another 9 yards receiving, and Curtis had to rush the ball 15 times for only 67 yards. So that was kind of crazy.
Yeah, that game, I mean, that was I was very early in my New York Jets fandom. And so that game, while I remember it and I've seen highlights from it, I can tell you that definitively that I did not watch that game. I did not see that game. And so, but I do remember Lamont Jordan. I remember you and we've talked about Lamont Jordan before, and how he had, there was some really good seasons where really made you feel like, when Curtis Martin, obviously we know how his career ended with the injuries and whatnot, and the early retirement, but he he would go on to get a free agent contract from the Raiders and ultimately like not pan out. But I thought that I was so mad when the Jets did not re-sign Lamont Jordan because he had quickly become like one of my favorite players. Um, and you said that this was the 2002 season, and then they lost the divisional round to the Raiders the next week. But I thought that you were gonna. I thought you were gonna bring up the Chargers game because that game was the Chargers game.
That was another phenomenal game.
Yeah, that game was wild.
I just got to go back to where the Jets actually hosted, because I kind of had a feeling where you were gonna go, just from knowing you. Like, it was one or two games for you, obviously, because I know how your fandom goes. But like for me, like the Jet, I was number one. I was at that game, so that adds to it. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, how many times have the Jets blown out an opponent? Nevertheless, blown out an opponent in the playoffs. Right?
Well, they did it again.
Yeah.
that one.
Cincinnati.
Oh no! Yeah, they blew up the doors off Cincinnati. That was a wild card round too. Yeah, blew the doors off Cincinnati. I thought you were talking about when the last time they blew out an opponent in the playoff game. I was talking about the Patriots. They didn't really blow them out, but that score was much closer than.
Oh yeah, of course.
The game was not as close as the score looked.
No, but I'm talking about you beat Peyton 41-0.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's absurd. Yeah, no, the San Diego game in 2005 was crazy because it led to the Pittsburgh game, which was absolutely absurd. Like, that game was crazy.
We've had some bad losses in the playoffs to Pittsburgh.
I mean, but you're able to get a 75-yard punt return from Santana Moss. And then you're able to get an 86-yard interception return from Reggie Tongue. The Steelers go down. They're able to drive and score a touchdown. But the Steelers, it seemed like the Steelers and the Jets. Well, the week before the Chargers and the Jets, nobody wanted to win that game between the kickers. And this week, it seems like Doug Bryan thought he was in the same competition of, let's see who's going to be the last to not miss it.
He was horrendous. Doug Bryan was horrendous.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was a, all this talk about playoffs. Hopefully we can reminisce on some recent playoff memories from the Jets. That's not going to happen this season, but there's always next year, and that's what we fully expect from the Jets. If you listen to the show, you've been listening to us for a while, like we've been saying it, like we don't expect the Jets to be a playoff team this year. We just expect them to be competitive, especially down the stretch, which they were. Again, if some of the injuries don't happen, maybe they get to those 6-7 wins that we thought that they were capable of, but ultimately injuries are part of the NFL. That happens, and you just have to adjust. And I think, we will see what this coaching staff can continue to do in year two, especially with all these young players that, again, they played more first and second year players than anybody in the league. They tied an NFL record for starting the most rookies, 10 rookies. So I don't know if that's an NFL record, if they just led the league, but they are a young team. They're getting older. They're getting more experience, and you can't put a value on experience and playing time, which a lot of these guys got. So next year, instead of being a lot of first and second year players, you're going to have a lot of second and third year players, and these are going to be the cores of your roster. And these four guys, obviously, they have a bunch of draft capital and flexibility in free agency, but these 4 picks in the top 40, these guys are going to be what hopefully help you go from competitive to in the playoff hunt, and that's what we expect from this Jets team next year.
Yeah, bro, can't wait to see it. It's going to be a long off season.
Definitely going to be a long off season, but as Jet fans, it's always our favorite time of the year because the season pretty much goes like this. So all we have is the off season because all it does is give you hope, right? Hope because there's no record, there's no games, nothing counts. It's just how can we get better? And then all of us Jet fans, we're gonna sit there, we're gonna look at the free agents, we're gonna look at the draft picks, we're gonna think about things that they should do, we're gonna make like a depth chart, and none of that will come true because they'll just end up doing what they want to do it in anyway. But it's going to be fun, and it'll be fun doing it with you guys here on this feed. So make sure you're rocking with us. And yeah, until next time, y'all, have a good one. And we're out of here. Peace.